Thank you, Venerable Zhiwen, for your kind invitation for me to be here. Hello, I keep seeing one people on camera. That's pretty nice, huh? Um, it's really a shame that I cannot be there in person. I know it's because of the pandemic and whatnot, but I've told that the Taiwanese government has releasing the regulations of flying into Taiwan. So that's probably something we can consider in the future. So yeah. And so for this talk, please do not consider it as like an academic professional lecture, but instead of like a sharing kind of conversation, if you will. So if you have any questions, please do feel free to ask me afterwards. And yeah, let's begin. So I have a very, very long PowerPoint prepared in front of me. And yeah, let's begin. Let me share my screen in the beginning. So this is my topic, online resources for academic research and in Buddhist studies. I guess you can see my mouse hovering over in Buddhist studies, right? And my name is Jeffrey, and I am a PhD candidate at the Department of East Asian Studies at the University of Arizona. So basically about me, this is my Chinese name, 我叫刘伟. And that's probably the only thing that I will speak in Chinese in this presentation. And this is my email. So if you have other further questions that you would like me to address to you directly in person or some personal matter, feel free to email me. And as I said, I'm a PhD candidate at the Department of East Asian Studies, and in Chinese, this is 东亚系, 东亚系. And I have a master's in Department of Buddhist Studies from Fubon University. And when I got to the University of Arizona, I am now acquiring another master's in Geographic Information Systems, or GIS. So for my research, very quickly, I study Chinese Buddhism, especially Chinese Buddhism in the Ming Dynasty, and with focus on social history with approaches including spatial and digital humanities. So about this presentation, very briefly, I will bring forth 5 personal recommendations. Those are not the websites that I will introduce, by the way. Those are just personal recommendations on the materials, to be specific, 1 video, 2 articles, and 2 books that helped me greatly along my way especially during my PhD journey. And for the websites, I split them into 3 different themes. So basically you can decide whatever stage of research you are in. So to determine what kind of information that you need. So it's either field overview, if you need previous scholarship, and finally, if you want just some keywords for your research. And finally, I would argue that this is the most important part in this presentation, is a very long Q&A session. This can go on for 30 minutes. And I was told by Venerable Zhiwen that you guys have finished your midterms. Congratulations. And so she told me that our Q&A can basically last forever. But mind you that we are now 10 p.m. in Tucson, Arizona. So if this goes over time, then I will probably speak to you 1 in the morning or something, but we'll see. And of course, I will introduce to you with a lot of websites that I think are crucial for you to find resources in academia, especially for Buddhist studies. Okay, so what did I want to learn back in 2016? So why 2016? It is the first year that I joined the English program in the Department of not East Asian Studies, the Department of Buddhist Studies, my apologies. And one of my biggest question or concern is that what exactly is academic writing? And how is this different from like our everyday writing in diaries and such? So this bothered me for a long time. I don't know how to do that. And of course, how do I even start grad school? And I was in Foshan for 3 years. So after that, when I got here, the same question pops out again. So also, how do I even start a PhD program, right? It's very overwhelming because you can instantly feel the workload differs if you're coming from undergrad to grad school or grad school to a PhD program, right? If you're an undergrad person, then you will probably read, I don't know, probably 1 article per 2 weeks, I would humbly suggest. And for grad school, that would be a book per week. And for a PhD program, that would be several books per week. So how do you even manage that? That's basically impossible. Yeah, so this is a question that I secretly ask my professor, when they assign the reading list. Are you for real, man? One book per week just for one class? Then if I have 3 classes, then are you telling me that I need to read 3 books per week? How is that possible? And also for the final paper requirement, whoa, did you say you need a 25-page to 30-page final paper? And also, since I have 3 classes, does it mean that I have to write a 75-page paper in only 2 weeks? Right? So that's the thing that I feel the most. And I can feel like this kind of struggle sort of happens to basically everyone that starts grad school or a PhD program. So I quote myself, okay, so now I have a topic in my mind, and here I am with a blank Word document, right? This happens all the time. What now? By the way, this screenshot is from SpongeBob. So, 海绵宝宝有看过吧? Right? So this is the episode that he tries to write something, and he ended after writing the. Oh, pretty fun. So basically, this is not even the first recommendation, but I would say that this is a requirement. So if you are only taking one thing away from this presentation, please take this. You get a screenshot or memorize the title or everything. So back in my day, I read the 8th edition. And when I checked for its book online a couple of days ago, I found out, hey, it has a 9th edition. So, well, there you have it. This is a basic manual for writers for papers, theses, master thesis, or PhD dissertation. And this, although this did not tell you how to write them per se, it gives you some of the basic ground rules that separates your academic writing quality to your personal writing, especially on the format. So if you've been taking English writing classes, academic writing classes, then you will find out that format in academic writing is one of the most, I wouldn't say it as troublesome, but one of the things that you should pay attention to, because every style has its own standard. And in my case, we use Chicago style, right? And this has its particular set of requirements that you should follow. So here comes my first recommendation, and I will just call it as Larry's lecture. It is a YouTube video, and the title of this video is The Craft of Writing Effectively. So basically, in this YouTube video, I wouldn't show it here because it's like 2 hours or something. And Larry, the professor in the lecture, told us how to create value when writing. So I often have a misconception when I'm writing for myself. Well, in academia, or I would argue every sort of writing is never for yourself. Well, for sometimes perhaps, but you as the author should be the last person that you should consider when you're writing something. You are always writing for a very specific group of target audience. For example, I believe that the Harry Potter series are still in trend nowadays, right? So back in the days, 25 years ago, when J.K. Rowling was writing the Harry Potter series, was she writing Harry Potter for herself? Not really, because she knew that this will be a children's book, so she directly catered her vocabulary, her language, so there cannot be too much, violence, gore, or some weird stuff happening in Harry Potter because it's a children's story, right? And similarly, in academia, who are we writing to, right? That is one of the core questions that we should always ask ourselves. For example, if you're now taking a class, then you're directly writing for your professor because he or she will be grading your paper. You are not writing for yourself, you are not writing for your parents, not writing for your friends. Well, perhaps writing for a friend if he or she, as a friend, will be critiquing your work, then that's perhaps another way to go, but not exactly. And in my case, when I'm writing my PhD dissertation, I am creating value. Hence, the target audience of me is this audience, the scholars in Buddhist studies, in sociology, and the digital humanities, things like that. And feel free, I believe that Venerable Zhiwen or Yihui, right, you will disseminate this PowerPoint to participants, so don't worry. Oh yeah, so this is the actual YouTube video. Oh hey, it's only like an hour and 20 minutes, so it's not as long as 2 hours. So if you are taking Gaotie from, Taipei to Kaohsiung, you can finish this lecture. So please do. My friends and I, or our professors, had finished this video for numerous amount of time. So please do so, and this will not be a waste of your time. So basically, what Larry told us is to connect your research with a broader audience. So you should always ask yourself, why am I doing this research? Is it to bridge the knowledge gap? What do you mean by to bridge the knowledge gap? For example, I bet that most of you would heard, well, probably your friends or your classmates saying something like this. So you ask him, hey, so why are you doing research so-and-so? Why are you focusing on the Ming Dynasty instead of the Song Dynasty? And this person will probably say, well, because the Ming Dynasty has never been touched before, right? Because until now, this is just a hypothesis. This is not true. This is just like a scenario conversation that we are imagining here. This person might say, well, from my knowledge, there are many Buddhist scholarship in Song Buddhism, but not so much in Ming Buddhism. So that is why I would want to bridge the knowledge gap here by affirming that there is actually some importance to Buddhism in the Ming Dynasty. Now, that is very valid in my opinion, but you should always ask a why not question. So basically, well, if the Ming Dynasty is so important, why didn't others touch on this subject before? Is it because that this is not important? Well, basically that will sometimes be the case. Just imagine that you're imagining, you're searching through C-beta, right? And you just found a Buddhist text at random, and you think, okay, I will do research on this random Buddhist text because no one has done it before. But have you considered on the possibility that no one has done research on it because this is not important? Well, this is sometimes the case. And finally, you should be asking yourself, what methods am I using when I am attempting to do my research? And for my research, I know it all started with Buddhist studies, but what other fields can my research, quote unquote, dab into? So basically, I know that Fo-Guang University, well, the Department of Buddhist Studies at Fo-Guang has been pushing like interdisciplinary conferences and approaches. So I've seen like posters about Buddhism and psychology, Buddhism and management, Buddhism and I don't know, some other lectures that I haven't paid attention to. But imagine that your study can be paired with sociology, linguistics, anthropology, or psychology, what have you. This is quite common that we do here in America, that when you do Buddhist studies, well, there are, of course, traditional Buddhist studies research or sinological research, but there are always scholars that try to use knowledge from different fields to interpret Buddhism in a very different way. And of course, you should always remember your own strength from the Department of Buddhist Studies, that your core research interest should and always be Buddhist studies. So establish your interest to be a topic that concerns Buddhism and expand just like this mind map. So this can be sociology, linguistics, anthropology, psychology, so on and so forth, okay? And we have online communities that you should also take advantage of. I know that Fo-Guang 佛教学系学会 or something has a very active Facebook fan page. So thank you for promoting this lecture, this talk. And the University of Arizona from my university also have a pretty active Facebook fan page. So we also have a Center for Buddhist Studies, and it posts all sorts of lecture information, booklets or academic articles that you should, be aware of that is just there. And secondly, Twitter. Twitter, I know is not a big thing in Taiwan, but in America, I would say that most scholars use Twitter to convey information, including job vacancies. So they will tweet about, oh, we are hiring someone, we are hiring an assistant professor at the University of so-and-so, or, oh, I will publish an article in a book next month. So, read my article, or conference information. So for the annual AAS or AAR, so Twitter can be a very valid information for you to know what scholars are talking about online, and usually in their cute inner circles, And of course, YouTube, it has been very mature recently. So like the lecture from Larry that I just showed you is from a YouTube video. And there are a lot of open source classes from YouTube that you just can type, for example, Chinese Buddhism lecture. And you will see all sorts of famous scholars giving lectures on Chinese Buddhism on YouTube. And of course, there's Reddit, and this is a bit controversial, but I'm a very heavy Redditor, so I thought I might as well put it here. And finally, email lists. So this is something that you should look around. For example, our Center for Buddhist Studies has an email list. So if you enter this URL in your website, you can see that we have a sign-up list. If you're interested, you can acquire information such as academic articles, journal articles and such. This is very handy. And I would suggest that you seek out for different academic institutions, especially on Buddhist studies or cultural studies or history, and see if they have their own center that has their own email list that caters to your interest. Okay, and for now, one of the major societies in Buddhism is this, H Buddhism. And I would suggest that everyone sign up for this, and signing up is totally free, by the way. This is like the largest forum online that scholars, students participate in conveying Buddhist stuff, And this is exceptionally important because it locates or talks about what kind of journals that has Buddhist content. And so for this panel on the left, we can see that journals fully or mainly dedicated to Buddhism. You can see like Buddhist Studies Review. This is very prestigious. And also Journal of Chinese Buddhist Studies. This is the 那个中华佛学学报, 这个 Journal of Chinese Buddhist Studies. And also there are journals that contains a significant portion on Buddhism, like philosophy, comparative philosophy, religion, religious studies, what have you. And also, those are the academic organizations in Buddhist studies. Well, not just Buddhism, but academic Buddhism in general. And I won't talk about them all because not all of them might pertain to your specific interest, but I would recommend to go back to H Buddhism and create an account and just walk into their discussions, reviews, resources, links. I don't know what blogs do, so yeah, let's skip blogs for now. So those couple of links are pretty important and you can play around with them. Okay, now finally to one of the major segments of this presentation, journal articles online. So what do you need? You need to evaluate your status in research before. And I know that I marked 1, 2, and 3, but those are not in sequential order. They're just, here by default. So this does not mean that you should always start with a general overview when you are getting scholarship and keyword atlas. This is not necessarily the sequence that you should follow. So basically, if you're just getting into the field, for example, you're a first-year MA student, you're a first-year PhD student, that you want to embark your research on, let's say, Tibetan Buddhism or Chinese Buddhism, also Indian Buddhism, and you know nothing about the area. What do? Well, you need to get a grasp of what the field is. So what exactly is Chinese Buddhism? The background information, right? And after that, you might want to read some of the scholarships provided after you know some general details. So this we call to establish a theoretical framework. So what do I mean by saying theoretical framework? So basically, when studying Buddhism in an academic setting, there are many theoretical frameworks that you should follow. So are you trying to do a traditional textual analysis in Buddhist studies? Or are you trying to do a sinological study, 汉学研究, right? So there's 佛学研究 and 汉学研究. Those can be quite different. And if you're like me doing digital humanities and frameworks in the digital humanities, 数位人文, or frameworks from sociology, 佛教社会学, right? So you should always establish those, and you need to read on how previous scholars use different theories to study Chinese Buddhism or Buddhism in a sense, right? And finally, if you are very familiar with the field, I just want to look for something very, very specific. For example, you want to know about Xing Yun Dashi, right? You want to know about Xuanzang, Kumarajiva. Well, you don't need to know about Chinese Buddhism to understand Xuanzang in a sense. You can just read about Xuanzang's biography and know what his stories are. So those can be pretty unique and different in terms of your approach in finding them. And here we go. So first of all, general overview of the field. This may seem easy or pretty open-ended for some of you, but this is very important. So you might neglect the power of open source search engines nowadays that we have. So of course, Wiki Almighty and Google, but I am not talking about Google search. In particular, you should try Google Scholar and Google Books. So, of course, there are also databases that you can search for. So basically, why would I recommend Wikipedia? So I remember when I was in college, like, man, almost 10 years ago, Wikipedia sucks. Like everything on Wikipedia are either copied from somewhere else with a sketchy reference, or a lot of teenagers, including me, would like to mess up Wikipedia like tiles, so you write something that's not true on Wiki, and the information that you search on Wiki would be wrong. But not nowadays. Nowadays, Wiki can be very powerful and gives you a lot of background information. So for example, if I type in Chinese Buddhism and I scroll down, I want to look about the Ming Dynasty, eminent monks, eminent nuns, and this is a figure of a famous monk back then. You can see some general understanding of the field. And this is not the jewel of Wikipedia. It is here. It has a very, very, very detailed reference and citation list. Now, those are updated pretty frequently. So you can see that a lot of those articles are written by very famous scholars like Rong Xinjiang, right here, and Bernard Faure, and Karma Lakshya-Zomo. She a Tibetan Buddhist scholar. I believe I was in her lecture when she was in Foguang like a couple of years ago. Nice experience. So all of those references can be used, and they are often neglected by users because they are all the way down at the bottom. So including sources, including books, articles, and some of them can be downloaded directly off the Wikipedia website. And if you cannot download it from here, I would suggest, hey, Professor Albert Welter, our 系主任, 那个东亚系的系主任, nice. And his book, you can just copy his book and paste on Google, and there will be some link for you to download. Yeah, so those are some even more narrowed down or specific articles and books that you can take reference to. So this is just from one tile, which is Chinese Buddhism. So just imagine the amount of articles that you can gain, you can acquire from just by searching different keywords or different background information. And well, basically, this is just a quick hack from Google. This is a bit small and I apologize. So if you Google, so after this presentation, obviously, you Google advanced Google search on Google, again, advanced Google search, and you can see a cheat sheet developed by Google himself saying that you should type in different ways to filter out your results. For example, you can add like quotation marks, excluded words, and this, 小波浪, the wave emoji. Different inputs can filter out different results very specifically, and you should check this out online. Very helpful. And for Google Scholar, this is also helpful. So, oh, my apologies. If I type in late Ming Buddhism, for example, you can see PDFs, books, and some of the things in their websites. Those are all available for download. And this is very, very convenient for a Google Scholar because you can search for very broad topics instead of, general, like very specific keywords or something. And finally, I would like to talk about Google Books. So Google Books, what I like about Google Books is that they can provide the OCR or scanned images found in those books. For example, if I type in prestige of Buddhist temples, so this is like one of my current research projects for now. I want to measure the prestige of Buddhist temples in Hangzhou. That's one of my research. And if I type this and click in, I can see, oh, hey, the AI from Google just matches my prestige of Buddhist temples in one of their books. And this can be very handy sometimes, especially for English words, because they are often better OCR'd. So OCR is to transform a written book into an electronic computer readable file in this case. So you can identify all the characters inside and you can copy and paste them. This is really convenient. And also for Chinese speakers, or if you are working with Chinese sources in general, the OCR function in Google Books also provide you with very nice functionality. So for example, Hangzhou Fuzhi, the gazetteer of the Hangzhou prefecture, Hu Paosi is, oh, fun fact, this is actually the Hu Paosi is the temple where Master Hong Yi taught you. So nice. And if I search for Hangzhou Fuzhi, Hu Paosi, I can get to historical text like this, Hangzhou Fuzhi, Hu Paosi. See, basically identical. And instead of having to flip through the entire Hangzhou Fuzhi, I believe it has like 120 fascicles, like very, very long. You just do this, and this can be very convenient for some time. And also, if you are working with temple gazetteers or 佛教四志, right? There's the, for example, Hangzhou Fuzhi is also counted as a gazetteer, but it is not a temple though. So this digital archive is the database that I'm talking about, and this was done by Dharma Drum, so Fagu, right? Before, I believe it was either 2009 or 2010. It's a pretty long time ago. They had a professor here called Marcus Spiegenheimer. He has a Chinese name. His Chinese name is Ma Dewei. So yeah, he's now at Temple University, and he was once a professor in Fagu. So he devised this entire database. I believe if you can see his name, oh, his name is not here. Anyways, so Professor Marcus Spiegenheimer, he uses digital techniques to identify different texts and different sources to read words by the computer, basically. So to create a huge database of all, well, not all, but the majority of gazetteers in China, in historical China. And this, I would argue that this might be beneficial if you are using Chinese for research or using Chinese sources as a primary source for research, okay? Because none of them are in English. Okay, here I have a second recommendation. It's Arthur Link's article. And the title of his article is Shi Sengyou. You know Sengyou, very famous monk. Shi Sengyou and his writings. And the reason for me to recommend this article is not about its content per se. Now, I'm not talking about his content is bad or not worth reading or something, but I want to focus on his writing style. So this serves as a very powerful template for beginner scholars, including myself, to write about specific tasks. And in his case, in Professor Link's case, he teaches, well, not to teach, obviously, but he demonstrated how to write about a prominent figure and his or her text, okay? So basically, this is the article, Shi Seng You and his writings, and it's available to download on JSTOR. This is another data repository that I will talk about later. See the download button here, you just download the whole thing. This is not a long article, it's only 27 pages. And I would strongly recommend that you read this article, even if you're not working with Chinese or early Chinese Buddhism, okay? Because again, I will stress this again, it is not about the content that I'm advertising here, but the way that he writes. This kind of article is the thing that I think we should mimic, or at least we should take account for, you know? And this, according to my academic advisor, Professor Wu Jiang, he said that this article, well, not too interesting, a bit dry even. So this is not the most interesting article that you will read out there, but this is very standard sinological research. So 传统汉学研究就是这样, right? So if you're doing sinological studies, you better write like this, okay? And the second one is Charles Jones's article. So his article is probably not as, well, more familiar to us than Arthur Link's article, perhaps because he works on Yuan Hongdao, you know, much more contemporary person. So Yuan Hongdao and the Xi Fang He Lun, one of his books, subtitle is Pure Land Theology in the Late Ming Dynasty. So what Charles Jones did is write about, again, a prominent figure, but this time he focused on their life and thought. So you should see the difference in between Arthur Link, figure and text, and Charles Jones, figure and life and thought, 生平及其思想, right? Oh, by the way, Charles Jones has like a Chinese name. His name is Zhou Wenguang, right? So like a nice uncle that lives in your neighborhood and, you know, walks around the park with you or something, Zhou Wenguang. So Zhou Lao's article is also very worthy of reading. Oh, this is him. Hey, Zhou Laoshi. So this is Zhou Wenguang. And again, this website is academia.edu, and another website that I will introduce later on. So this is his article, and it is also available for download. See download PDF. And don't worry about download the full package. You don't need to translate it. It cannot be translated, I believe. Anyways, in summary, well, this is not a long article. See, like it estimated for you. It's a 76-minute read. So, well, you know, not too long. So it's definitely manageable. And the way Professor Jones did it, or how Zhou Laoshi did it, is very bare boned and simple. And again, pure sinological research. This is the thing that we should always fall back to, and we should always try to imitate to be like as good as him. No, this is very difficult there. So let us turn to the second aspect, which is previous scholarship. Again, for journal articles, please refer to the list on H Buddhism. Do remember that I talk about, we have a big label on the left side that says major articles related to Buddhism and like minor articles related to Buddhism or something. So please go back to that list on H Buddhism. And there are two websites that I recommend to search for previous scholarship. The first one is JSTOR, so for Arthur Link's article. And the second one is Academia.edu, which I demonstrated for finding Professor Zhou Wenguang's article. Man, Charles Jones's article. So I know that there can be so much more websites that you can use for previous scholarship or to look for journal articles in general, but I don't want to confuse you because this can be a bit overwhelming, even for me. Too much things are not always good. So instead of giving me 10 choices that I can use, just give me 2 or 3 hard choices that I actually use. And this is what I've been doing right now. So I know there are some websites out there, but please, for now, I believe that JSTOR and Academia.edu would suffice your needs. And also, if you are concerning interdisciplinary studies, or if you're just saying that, I want to do something more than Buddhist studies, then look for the fields that you may tap into. So you look for their own specific journal articles and websites. For example, there's the Journal for Spatial Humanities. There's also the Journal of Humanistic Geography. Same, there can also be a journal on, psychological Buddhist studies or Buddhist psychology or something, depends on how you read it, but it's the same idea. And this is the image of JSTOR, and you see that this is access provided by my university, University of Arizona Library. And please check that whether Foguang has an active subscription to JSTOR. I don't know, because I did not know about JSTOR when I was in Foguang, so I did not check anyways. JSTOR is the thing that I used after I got to the University of Arizona. And if not, I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, okay? But I am pretty sure that if you go to 国家图书馆 or Taida, I believe Taida and Guotu most likely have an active subscription to JSTOR, or at least 中研院. So you can probably use their IP address or apply for an account or something to use JSTOR there. So that is also a viable option if Foguang does not have an active subscription to JSTOR. So JSTOR, again, is very convenient. So you can also look for like big and broad keywords, Ming Buddhism and the culture. See, there are 8,000 results. Of course, not all of them are Ming Buddhism and culture, but there are things that see Buddhism and Chinese culture and mercy and punishment, Buddhism and death penalty, things like that. And you can scroll on and on. So everything are open for download, and you can save them as a bookmark in your website, or just cite them as a bibliography. Very, very handy. And academia.edu. Sorry for the image being a little bit murky, but anyways. So, as I just said about, I believe academia.edu is kind of like the Facebook of academic scholars, not just in the US, but worldwide, I would argue. Because the thing is like this, they will post their most recent academic discoveries, including new articles, like, new articles, and you can see where they are, really kind of like Facebook, and you can download them, save to your library, and you can follow some scholars. And in order to do so, you need to create an account in academia.edu. So there are two accounts that I would recommend you to set up on if you haven't already. The first one, H Buddhism, and the second one, academia.edu. And so there's one more thing. For academia.edu, there is like a premium function where you pay, I believe, $40 US dollars. So 1200块吧，1200、1300台币也没很贵。So I believe, if I remember correctly, after the student discount, $40 or something per year for a premium membership on academia.edu. And I think that is totally unnecessary, at least for me. I will probably get a premium account after I graduate, but we'll see. I just feel like premium is not worth your money at the moment, because what you need is to follow scholars and see what their new articles are and download them if you are interested. So yeah, you don't need a premium membership for that. So $40 is quite steep, to be honest. Okay, so this is my fourth recommendation, is Junfang Yu, or her Chinese name is Yu Junfang's book. This is one of the legendary books in my field. The title is The Renewal of Buddhism in China, Zhu Hong and the Late Ming Synthesis. So Zhu Hong, as in Yunqi Zhu Hong, right, is one of the four great monks in the Ming Dynasty. So 明末四大高僧之一就是他云栖朱红. Okay, and this book is about 云栖朱红 and the Late Ming Synthesis, 三教合一, right? And this book, again, it's a bit about the content, but I really want you to focus on Professor Yu's ability to establish a new era in academic research. What do I mean? So this book, it's relatively old. if you look at this one, you will see, hey, no, it's 2020. Well, do you know this 2020 is the 40th anniversary version? So like 40周年啊，同学们. So, well, no. It's like, yeah, 40 years. The initial publication date is 1981 or something. So that was a very, very long time ago. And at that time, scholarship, especially in late imperial Chinese Buddhism, have a common perception that Ming Dynasty Buddhism were actually declined. So not as prosperous as the golden ages in the Tang Dynasty or the Song Dynasty. So not a lot of scholars were interested in the Ming Dynasty because they think that, there's nothing to it in the Ming Dynasty about Buddhism. But Professor Yu, in her book, she said that, well, there actually is. Ming Dynasty actually gone through a revival of Buddhism. And she explained how that is in her book. So after this book, in 1981, there has been a great shift in academic studies in Chinese Buddhism that many of the scholarship in the Ming Dynasty had begun to emerge, including my own research. And the University of Arizona, many of us Buddhist studies scholars or students are also working on the Ming Dynasty because there are just so much things that we can delve into, right? So if you read this book, this is not a big book. It did not say about how thick it was, but I believe it was no more than 300 pages. It is a very interesting reading. So you can really see how she established dominance in this field in terms of changing of an era. So this is really neat. So finally, we come to our keyword. So basically, this should be one of the final phases, well, hypothetic final phase anyways, in your research that you know directly what you want. For example, after you read Yu Junfang's book, you will probably think, okay, I want to read about Sanjiao Heyi, or I want to read about Yunqi Zhuhong, right? Now, that is not a general information anymore. Like, imagine you have to read about a single person without having to know the entire background. That is not very helping to your own scholarship. And again, this can be bifurcated into database or metadata. So this again is by Fagu, see the logo here. So they have a very neat project called Buddhist Studies Authority Database Project, 佛学规范资料库. And it has 4 databases that you can try. The first one is 时间, so time, person, prominent figures, basically location or place. And the final one is the authority database of Buddhist Tripitaka catalogs. And this is new, so it is still in beta. And I would love to do a live demonstration on this, but unfortunately, this the website is a bit slow to access from a non-Taiwanese IP address. So when I try to use it on my computer, so instead of showing this directly on live, so I just well, that really threw me off guard. Okay, so let's just delve in, shall we? So for the 人民规范检索, so this is for a famous person, and this is the person for my master thesis. So Han Shan Deqing, the other great monk in the Ming Dynasty. So if you type in his name, you can basically see the entire, well, this is not definition, but the entire database available in the Fagu database. This is very, very helpful. So you can link this person with a lot of extra information that you can conduct research on. And again, the most important part that a lot of people would neglect is, see, 研究论文. It even has English text on it. So English academic articles, the first one is a PhD dissertation by Xu Songpeng, right? Pennsylvania, yeah. And just look at the sheer amount of academic articles written on Master Han Shan, because he's such an important figure. So there are just many, many things about him. And Fagu is very kind. and they compile the entire thing for us. So this is also something that you should look into if you want to see if there are articles that are directly related to your keyword or person in a sense. Okay, finally, the fifth recommendation would be Timothy Brooks' book. Timothy Brooks, he also has a Chinese name, is Bu Zhengmin, pretty cool. And this book is a bit different from the books that I have recommended. And his title is Praying for Power, Buddhism, and the Formation of Gentry Society in Late Ming China. This book has a Chinese translation, and actually I do have a Chinese translation for it, but it's in simplified Chinese. And I don't know whether you have like a translation for traditional Chinese on this book. You can look it for yourself, but I would assume that reading simplified Chinese or English is, they're all fine. So the reason for me to recommend this book is that you will think that Timothy Brooks is like a Buddhist studies scholar. Well, he's not. Timothy Brooks is a scholar of social history. He is a social historian. 他是社会史学家，他是研究社会史的 right? Social historian. He does not work in Buddhism, but he dared to put the word Buddhism, late Ming, I'm praying, Buddhism or religion-related words directly on his book title. So what's about this book? He tried to engage in Buddhism or talk about Buddhism outside of Buddhism. Now, this might a bit not as catchy as I would like, but I believe that you know what I'm trying to say here is that he uses method from sociology and history to interpret or investigate Buddhist temples in the late Ming. So you can see how he really framed his theoretical framework that I just talked about to establish the theoretical framework in his introductory chapter. So if you really have time to read through this book, in which I highly, highly recommend, please take your time, take like 2 to 3 hours to read through his introduction. It is not long, it's around like 20 to 30 pages. And I'm saying that it takes a long while. It's because he introduced many concepts that are not that familiar with us. Well, for me, at least, if we are coming directly from a Buddhist studies background. For example, in his introduction, he talked about a concept called the public sphere. So in Chinese, the public sphere is translated as 公共空间, right? So the public sphere is actually a concept developed by a German philosopher, Jürgen Habermas 的公共领域或是公共空间的理论，对吧？ And this is not the thing that we typically see every single day in the field of Buddhist studies. But somehow Timothy Brooks used this framework as an underground basis to open up his entire and splendid argument for this book. So please take your time. It shouldn't take more than 3 hours to read the first 20 or 30 pages of his introduction. And there will be a lot of things that you need to search online. For example, he did mention a lot of people names, a lot of technical jargons that are outside of the Buddhist field. And again, you just see how he played and manipulated with the terms to construct his argument, as in Buddhism and the social. Very cool. And this book is very well written, in my humble opinion. Well, so after the 3 points, do you think it is too much? Like, a lot of random websites or such? Well, of course, for me, it is a bit much, to be honest, to take at first sight. So there's a thing that you basically just utilize your library. When I was there, I did not utilize the Foguang library that much. Hopefully, the fifth floor library in Yunshuixuan about all Buddhist books is still there. and with a lot of Buddhist books, hopefully. But the reason for me to ask about university libraries is that they usually have a very strong interlibrary loan system. So if you don't have a book that is in Fosguang, if it's in Zhongshan Daxue in Kaohsiung, for example, you can borrow that from Zhongshan without having to travel to Kaohsiung by yourself, And what I did back in the day is if I can't find something, I will use the library in Taida or Guotu because, they're a bit more powerful and they have more books than Fosguang. That's the case. And also, if you happen to be in Nangang, please do visit the Library of Institute of Modern History, which is in Academia Sinica, 中研院的傅斯年图书馆. Now, this is super, super helpful because 中研院 are subscribed to some of the rare and, to be honest, expensive databases that are not subscribed elsewhere. And those subscriptions, those databases, those articles, newspapers, old magazines can only be seen and read in the library of 中研院. Not even if you are connected to 中研院's Wi-Fi. That does not even work. You need to actually use their own computer in their own library. So that is how they monitor the usage of their, high-priced databases. But I will tell you, they are 1000% worth it. And finally, WorldCat. Find items in libraries near you. Now, this is very, very straightforward. And because this is fast, so I will now do a live demonstration of WorldCat. So hopefully, would hope that we are still on WorldCat. So for example, my location is set on Tucson, Arizona. There is where I am. So basically, if I type in whatever, Chinese Buddhism. Yeah, let's go with Chinese Buddhism for now. See, there are so many books that are at a glance. See, The Power of Patriarchs. Okay, let's just go for this one. Chinese Buddhism, A Thematic History, written by Yu Junfeng. Remember the name from the 4th recommendation, right? So we click inside and you can see the libraries that hold those books. Wow, that is very far in San Diego, in California, also in California. So we don't have this book at the University of Arizona, which is a shame, but well, So by this, we can see that where are the books located, and the thing is, it also tells us what kinds of books are out there because it is linked with libraries throughout the world. For example, 星云大师. Okay, let's go for 这个好了，人间佛教社会学论集. Let's see, it's Louis Lancaster. Oh, 西来大学. Okay, that's why. Okay, so this is in University of the West. And the nearest one is 7,000 miles away, Xinbei Shili. Of course, this book will be in Taiwan. So, you get what I'm trying to do here is this is a very powerful website that locates all the books, articles in a retrievable format. Because remember, I talked about the interlibrary loan from the university libraries. And this is a place that you can guarantee that, okay, we have a book there. So we can request the book or articles directly from our local library to that book from other universities. This is very handy and helpful. Okay, and this is what I just talked about library subscriptions. And usually, most libraries will subscribe to their own academic interest. And this is a list from our university, the University of Arizona, their subscriptions on Chinese academic studies. So you can see bibliography of Asian studies, China, America, and the Pacific. And, if you know Chinese, those who are 知网, right? So 知网 basically are all journal articles, master theses, PhD dissertation that are published in China. So they're obviously search only in Chinese, but if you can read Chinese, then that will not be a big deal. Okay. And the thing that I want to talk about here is 读秀. So 读秀. So this is 读秀. And again, this is very powerful. And this is only, well, I've only typed here in Chinese though, because this is a very powerful tool for you to search books in China and Hong Kong, especially in Hong Kong, man, because there are a lot of Hong Kong books and articles that are locked behind somewhere, not 读秀. So you can see that. My apologies, we don't have like an English version for 读秀. There's only 简体中文 or 繁体中文, simplified or traditional Chinese that I'm using now. So you can search for books, journal articles. This is sort of like a general overview thing. Newspapers, theses, PhD dissertations, conference papers, and I don't use those a lot. So yeah, again, if I search on Hangzhou Fozhou, which is Buddhism in Hangzhou, and I check the checkbox for academic journals, then I will see very much, let's see here, 1,682 journal articles in Chinese about Buddhism in Hangzhou, and many of them can be downloaded. And again, this needs institutional access, and I don't know whether, again, Foguang has an active subscription to 读秀. This I'm not sure, but again, please try to use the library in Taida or 中研院 or 国家图书馆, because they might have active subscriptions to those. And believe me, they are very, very helpful. I remember that during this summer, so like a couple of months ago, I was in Taiwan, and I did a field work research for my professor for the Center for Buddhist Studies at the University of Arizona at Academia Sinica, so at 中研院. And when I was playing around with the data in 中研院, I did my own dissertation research with their exclusive library subscriptions that 中研院 provides. And man, I can tell you, I was only there for my own dissertation research for like one afternoon. That's like 4 to 5 hours or something. And the information I get from exclusive databases and resources exceeded my like 2 to 3 months of browsing through CBeta like a mindless person. So sometimes it is all about the tools that saves you a tremendous amount of time. And this 读秀 is really one of a kind. So if you have subscription, please do play around with it. And this is a bit basic, but very important. So basically, this is kind of like the Taiwanese version of 知网, right? So when 知网 collects all theses and dissertations in China, this website collects all theses and dissertations in Taiwan as suggested by the English title right here, right? And also, again, I apologize if this is a bit small. NTU Taida Digital Library of Buddhist Studies, they have like, those are journals or journal articles that have a significant amount of Buddhist content that you should look inside. But unfortunately, I believe that those are for catalog only. So I am not sure that you can directly download from those, because I believe they are locked behind an Taiwan IP address. So when I try to test this, when I'm here like a couple of days ago, I cannot get it to work. So if you guys can get it to work, then good for you. But this is not a thing that I can do right now, unfortunately. I can know that what kind of articles are out there, but I cannot read this content directly through this website. Okay, so 富斯年图书馆, those, there are actually a total of 20 actually. So the 20 are Academia Sinica exclusive databases that you can use. So there's like 20 of them. So there are some 无限制 means that you can study this basically anywhere, but 院内, right? You can only access those within Academia Sinica. And believe me, as always, this is definitely worth your research, because it's not like you need to pay an entrance fee or something. You just go inside, use their library, and get the things that you need from their exclusive sources. So there are a lot of sources that you can use and probably would be beneficial for you. Yeah, so, plenty of books and articles. Yeah, I get it. What's next? So I guess everyone in academia would encounter a stage where like, wow, I just found a gold mine of articles, of books, or of the things in my field. I can guarantee that if I open my download folder for now, I will have over 200 journal articles that I haven't read it. So like, what's the point? The thing is, you cannot finish everything that's out there. You have to be very, very selective. But how, though? That is the thing that we should all figure out on our own. It's very difficult, yeah, but that is kind of the amazing part of being a grad student, right? You get to choose your own freedom of writing and the freedom of your primary source. You get to choose, okay, I want to incorporate anthropology in my Buddhist studies research, and I would also want psychology in my Buddhist studies research. But unfortunately, I am not a fan of, I don't know, digital humanities. So no digital humanities in my studies, things like that. So what should we do? Of course, this is obviously a joke. This is not to tell you to copy 100%, but to imitate. Like how? Remember the 5 recommendations that I've just showed you? From Arthur Link's article to Zhou Wenguang, Charles Jones's article, Timothy Brook, Yu Junfang, Larry's was a lecture, so that's not an article. But for the 4 articles, 2 books, 2 articles that I showed you here, they follow a specific pattern that is imitable. If Timothy Brook is writing about Buddhism and sociology, and if you're also interested in using sociology to interpret Buddhism, see how he did it in his book. And when he explained previous scholarship, you also explain previous scholarship, but you should probably talk about different scholarship because you might, explain different things in Buddhist studies. You know what I mean? So I guess what I'm saying is you should find a template that suits your research. And there are so many things that you can tackle in Buddhist studies. So you can either go from intellectual history, social history, cosmology, political history, sacred space, community networks, prominent figure or prominent location, and of course with their 生平议题思想，对吧? With their thoughts or texts. So, excuse me, by the way, I have like one textbook for each kind of recommendations here. So if you're interested, we can discuss it afterwards because this presentation has almost come to an end. And also for interdisciplinary studies, again, if you are not viable, or if you just don't want to investigate Buddhism with all sorts, if you want to do, I don't know, vegetarianism and Buddhism, sure, you should look online and see whether there were previous scholarship that had done extensively on vegetarianism and Buddhism. See how they did it and see if you can imitate his or her framework and use it as your own. Now, mind here, I'm saying that you use their framework, their logic, not their content, right? So if he is saying that, I use this Charles Jones's article to establish my framework, and in your case, this is probably not a good idea to also use Charles Jones to establish your framework. You know what I'm saying? Because that would be completely almost identical and too copy-ish, if you know what I'm saying. So finally, I know that grad school is hard and difficult, so this is always a nice thing to know that you're not the only one that struggles. I am actually struggling right now because I'm writing my own PhD dissertation. Very taxing experience, and it is fun on one end, but it can be very stressful if you have to work. As a part-time student, you need to grade, you have to teach classes, you have to, do other things in your life. But at least you are working together as a cohort. So I believe that, that mental health in you is super important, knowing that, well, 有难同当嘛，对不对？ Oh, you cannot finish the reading? Me neither. Well, let's go to the class with, half the reading done. Well, of course, I'm not advocating not to finish your reading. My apologies if, but you get the gist, right? So finally, this is the end of my presentation. And yeah, thank you very much. And I will stop sharing at the moment. If you are interested, this is currently our Q&A session. So feel free to ask me anything. And also, please just feel free to ask me really, literally anything. If you are interested in studying abroad, you can ask me about scholarship and ask about PhD life, or of course you can ask about the presentation, what have you. Yeah, so now the floor is pretty much open, and please, if you have questions. 因为刚刚法师有提到说，比如说跨领域的研究好了，是没有错，跨领域的研究，比如说我的研究是佛教跟 GIS， 确实可以让 GIS 那边的学者，就是地理系的学者，可以知道哦，我们人文在研究这个，然后佛教的学者呢，也可以知道说，哦，原来还可以用 GIS 来研究这个文本哦。可是我觉得有个非常重要的是，佛教传统的研究、佛学研究跟汉学研究，这个是两个不可撼动的大本柱。就是可能我刚刚在讲的时候过于兴奋，你知道吗？就是因为这是我自己的研究，讲得很开心。所以说，就是我刚刚还是有说要retain your core interest， 就是对我们来说呢，因为我们是东亚系，或是佛教系，或是打着自己是研究佛教的招牌，不能永远说啊，我这个是心理学跟佛教啦，啊，我这是比如说医学跟佛教，这个还是有点危险的。所以说，我觉得还是要提醒大家，就是说，是这些东西是很方便，然后它也可以增加我们研究的品质。不过，所有的问题的解决方法，你文章的问题意识，你的 argument，永远都还是得从佛学研究或是传统的汉学研究来的。像是比如说，在美国有两个很大的宗教的年度会议的盛事，一个是 AAR， 一个是 AAS。这两个基本上都是非常传统汉学，或是如果说有佛学的 panel 的话，就是佛学汉学走向，它都是有一个非常明确的脉络，基本上就是主流的研究。所以说，严格来说，虽然我们国外是比较推崇跨领域的研究没有错，可是传统的佛学对于佛教就是绝对是不会没有被重视，它还是最重要的一环这样子。So yeah, that is my comments in Chinese. My apologies. So we are recording this, by the way. So if you're interested, feel free to listen to the Chinese comment and translate it somewhere. So if you have questions, feel free to ask me in either English or Chinese. So I will answer accordingly to your language.
这么说来，就是也让我意识到一个问题，就是在英语学界，他们要研究佛教。那您刚刚讲汉学嘛，所以外国人在学佛学的时候，他们是不是要先学好中文呢？那这会不会也是我们同学在这边学习的时候，也可以放一点心在的地方？
好，法师，谢谢您的提问就是不知道刚刚有没有发现啊，在报告的时候有好多外国学者都有中文名字，就是不是有个人叫周文广吗？就像是公园里面那个善良的北北的那个名字。然后我刚刚提出来的很多像 Timothy Book 卜正明，他也有中文名字，Arthur Lin 也有中文名字，可是我忘记了。然后就是这些早期的汉学大家之所以有中文名字，就想必是他们把中文学得非常透彻了。然后幸好我们现在处于汉学研究已经过了快100年之后的时代了吧，所以说已经有这些把中文学透彻的汉学老学者们，比如说像是 Jacques Grenet， 他叫谢和奈，他有写什么中国宋代城市的研究什么的，就是这种书已经非常多了，然后这些全部都是英文的，这些等于就是这些汉学老学者他们毕生的精髓写成英文了， 所以说现在国外的学者呢，你其实中文稍微就可以了啦。我自己是这样觉得，因为这些东西实在是太有效了，因为这些书啊都很厚，700-800页的，就是这个不是我们现在在看的那种200-300页的小书，没有，他们一本书都20-30个章节，然后每个章节都40-50页，看到会啼笑的那一种。这种如果说你真的能啃下去啊，那真的就不得了。然后至于法师，您刚刚有提到说从不同的科系来，然后比如说你有心理背景，甚至是电机佛学佛学背景没有，医学背景或者 GNS 的背景来踏入佛教的领域，你当然会想用你的东西来研究佛教，或者用你的观点来看佛教，这个是完全没有错的。可是偏偏有一个很现实的点，就是如果说你想要在学术界立足，尤其是在佛教的领域，让别人 recognize 你是一个that is a nice Buddhist scholar right there，有这种想法的话，你不能不，这个我只能中英夹杂，你不能不 play the game，就是人家100年的研究基础就已经放在这边，你不能跳进来说，那个我是100年来第一个医生，或是第一个太空人研究佛教的，来让你们听听我最厉害的研究方法，这个不行啊。这个你进去，大家会想说，所以说我们之前在中国住了50年的美国学者，他毕生的研究，你看都不看吗？这个是不行的。当然，你如果说想要弄成一个很有趣的 article， 把它发表出来，佛教跟医学在明代的交错，这个是完全没有问题。可是如果说你真的要一个很强的理论基础的话，可能还是要自己先退后一步，你先虚心的接受说，现在佛教研究到这边是什么样的形状，然后大家是怎么看待佛教研究的？那你身为一个医生，要如何用你科学的领域来看佛教？我觉得这样子会比较妥当一点点，这样子。然后chat 我看到有一位同学说，请问我是如何取舍二手文献？我会重视指标性期刊吗？问的太好了，谢谢你的提问，这位同学。那个指标性期刊我会，因为我现在就投过一篇期刊，然后我是在我自己投的时候，我当然会看，我不会想要自己的文章看在很奇怪的地方，当然是要用学术的 credit。可是偏偏这种系统啊，对于文章的好坏的取舍，还有跟你自己需要的取舍，不见得是最符合的。就像是我们这个领域最顶的期刊之一，就是那个哈佛的期刊，什么 HJAS，我有点忘记了。总之就是哈佛亚洲期刊还是什么的。然后这个号称它的收稿率是2%，就是你100个人去投稿，然后只会有2篇刊出来，这种极低的那个刊出率，然后每一篇都是极品中的极品。可是这个我有看过，就真的没有兴趣啊。然后看完之后，我也觉得说，这我知道很厉害啦，可是我看不太懂。然后就是他的研究跟我的没有过于契合，所以说会不会重视指标性期刊？我在找文章的时候是不会，我会以标题还有 abstract 为主。abstract 呢就是它的摘要嘛，然后这个也回应了您第一个问题，就是怎么取舍二手文献。因为摘要通常都很短，可能1页到半页，可能200-300字，我就会快速看一下摘要。这个是我要的，这个不是我要的，不是我要的，就连下载都不下载，就知道有它在就可以了，大概是这样子。
我想问一下，就是你在佛光大学是怎么准备，然后可以进入Arizona 大学的？就你什么时候开始写你那个论文？那个过程是怎么准备的？因为你要跳进不好意思 Arizona 的话，应该那个过程不只是1-2个月，可能那个2年你是怎么准备的？那个硕士期间，
我先讲一下那个准备申请博班的过程好了。最大的东西就是人家2年毕业，我3年毕业啊。就是其他同学可能1年级修课，2年级写论文，然后2年级可能2下的时候吧，就可能答辩，然后可能7月的时候领毕业证书，开心毕业去也这样子。然后因为我那个时候美国的学校啦，通常在申请截止的时候都是该年的11月中旬到隔年的1月中旬，在 比如说今年的11月就差不多现在好了，差不多现在开始到明年的1月15号，通常是申请美国 grad school， 申请明年9月的那个学期，就是你要去读1上的话，你现在就要开始申请。那个时候就是我硕3的时候，所以说我那个时候到硕2呢，是因为我有计划，就是说我刚进佛光，就是说我要出国念博士，然后那个时候有一个很大的安排吧，就是说我会希望我的论文是按部就班的完成，不要最后在3个月内写一篇200页的东西。然后因为英文也不是我的母语，写起来也比较辛苦，所以说我在写的时候其实是花了很多时间在修改的。那我自己的策略呢，就是我1年级的时候参加一场佛光的研讨会，2年级再参加一场佛光的研讨会。参加研讨会的时候，刚好发表我写完的那一个章节，然后会在现场会获得很多的 feedback， 然后老师也会给我 feedback， 我就刚好在那个时候刚好慢慢论文准备成型，所以说我2年级结束之后，我论文刚好写了一半，刚好写了一半，然后其中一个章节我拿来当 writing sample， 就是申请国外的博班，硕班不用哦，博班他一定要看你的写作的，就是那个样本一定要写得非常好，然后有一些学校会接受中文的样本，然后有一些学校会只要求英文的样本。那我这个时候申请了，倒是准备托福考试，这个就不用讲，这个我是没有受太多的阻碍。不过他要写一个东西叫 Statement of Purpose，Statement of Purpose， 或是叫 SOP， 就是写说为什么你很厉害，为什么你就是要来读这个博士班不可，这个博士班跟你的研究是契合的吗？那你里面有哪个老师特别喜欢？你的研究专长是什么？就是写这种东西。然后这个还不能长哦，他只能要写1页到2页，就是你写太多他还不会看，他就想说，我就是给你1页的空间让你写2页，表示你不够厉害，就是之类的这种感觉。这个就是来来回回一直修改，一直修改。所以亚利桑那我记得是隔年的1月15号交件，然后我就是跟子玲一起交件，然后都很幸运，我们2个都有一起被录取，然后放榜的时候是3、4月吧，然后那个时候他就说，哦，恭喜你成为我们新的学生什么什么，然后我看到这个我就放心了，哦，真好，然后我就把剩下的论文结论 introduction 写一写，然后就是赶在出国搭飞机前去答辩，然后拿毕业证书这样子。看你要申请哪一些学校哈，像是亚利桑那，我们这边的托福要求很低的，他只要79分。可是话说，有很多同学这边都是90分、100分以上。然后因为美国你要来这边，像是我跟子玲都是运气非常好，有拿学校的奖学金。然后拿学校奖学金就是你要改作业，你要去帮大学生上课。然后这有一个但书，就是你的托福的口说要超过25分，就是有这种很细节的小门槛，会让你觉得79分好像不太够，好像要稍微高一些。可是如果说 GRE 不用，然后 GRE 就是看，像是我当初有申请其他学校，有一些学校要 GRE， 然后文科的学校通常他说 GRE 参考，就是他那个你也知道有时候在申请的时候，他就会说此栏位为必填，然后就会有一个红色的米字号，你没填东西还不让你下一步，然后 GRE 就是你空白，它也可以让你下一步。我是有考啦，因为可是我没有准备，我就是报名那个周末的 GRE 就去考，然后考完就分数填上去，就这样，因为他们也没有看。不过我觉得英文不应该会是一个最大的阻碍点或是挑战，因为托福是有方法的，对吧？去补个习或是怎么样，我想要达到那一些比较低的门槛，我想这通常不是问题。真正难的是我来这边，幸好我跟子玲一起来，互相有个照应，不然你一个人来就是也不知道吃什么，然后什么东西都过得不习惯之类的。所以说，我觉得这个如果说有机会，我们之后可以再慢慢谈，就是出国留学甘苦谈这样子。看一下哈。
是在好奇，在我们在 reading 的时候，不管是看书啊还是 paper， 不晓得您方不方便就是跟我们分享传授一下你怎么整理这些自己的资料，在最后要写的时候很方便快速的放到 放到自己的文章里面，比如说表格或者是树状图或者是 brainstorm 的图这样子，因为资料的量很大的话，怎么样比较不会忘记，就是我需要的那个东西在哪里。
因为我之前也是理科的学生，所以说我猜我们的想法可能会有点雷同。就是因为我讲个故事好了，顺便分享一下经验。就是刚刚这个 talk 开始之前，志文法师有问说我是不是考过博士的资格考了？是的。那博士的资格考是这样子就是我有一个主修，我的主修之一是中国佛教，这个我就是跟我的指导教授，这个没什么。然后呢，你会去找2个副修，就是你觉得这个领域是可以辅佐你的主要方向的。那我其中一个副修是学中国文学就是文学理论，就是比较 theoretical 的东西。然后第2个副修是 GIS， 所以说我就是跑到我们学校的地理系去上地理系的副修这样子。那这种资格考的考试方法呢，就是老师会给你书单，然后就是你要跟老师讨论出一个书单，就是说好，老师就规定说好，我这边呢给你30本到35本书，然后你就是把它看一看，看完之后呢，我给你题目，然后限时的时间内把它回答完。那这个时间呢，我觉得非常考验到您刚刚提到的资料整理的能力。为什么呢？因为我考了2个压力很大的考试。第一个是我的指导教授，他是说好，那考试就是给你出3个题目，一个题目你写10页英文的东西，然后1个礼拜之内要寄回来给我，就是1个礼拜30页东西。然后这个我就写一写，然后错折的交了。然后另外一个老师他就是说好，那48小时你要写25页的东西。然后这个我就发现哇，这个就开始有点困难了。所以说呢，我自己在统整这些的方式，是我每天会为我读过的东西做日记。就是我会说，比如说今天几月几号，11月3号你们11月4号了好，一样啦。11月3号的什么时候，我今天看了什么书，然后我就会把书名放在上面，说假设我今天看了 Praying for Power， 然后我就把我今天看了对于他的心得或是书摘要写在下面。然后我 Praying for Power， 我就会特地把它设一个快捷键，比如说它是 A， 或是 Timothy Brook 的 T， 或是 Praying for Power 的 P 之类的。然后我就会把这个快捷键跟书本的组合放在 Excel 的表格里面 ，Praying for Power P。
My name is Sudarshana, and thank you very much for your presentation. I really felt the research student experience is definitely very helpful for us, and sharing the same woes that we are all in the right now passing through. So I'm very much interested in the textual research and maybe kind of archaeological inscriptions. So what kind of any kind of books that you would like to recommend? And I also want to know what will be the theoretical framework. I found this technical term very much. So can you throw some light on that? Thank you.
No problem. So you mentioned archaeological research. Is that right?
It's inscriptions. I would refer to the archaeological inscriptions or the discoveries around the Buddhism.
I see. Yes, I do have a couple of books in my mind, but unfortunately, I do not have them by heart at the moment. So if you can leave me your email, I will send you the PDFs or like the title of the book afterwards, if that's okay. Because like I remember, like I have read them before, but I just don't have them on my radar at the moment. So please give me a day or two to organize them. And yeah, can you shoot me an email?
Oh, sure. I will share my email with you.
Yeah.
I'll send you an email. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And about the theoretical framework, if you can throw some more light on this.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So sorry, I forgot about that. So for the theoretical framework, it basically means put it in very basic terms, what are the previous scholarship that had been done in this particular interest? So it's not like we are talking about, oh, the frameworks in Buddhist studies. No, but for example, in Timothy Brooks' book, he investigates Buddhism with sociology. So in his case, his theoretical framework would be how scholars had used sociology in Chinese studies in the past. And I did make an example about he used the concept of the public sphere. So his framework would be to use the European public sphere and parallel that into the Chinese public sphere and to see whether China as a state can be equivalent to Europe as a nation in terms of using public sphere to describe the relationship between the church and state, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem. Have a nice rest of your day, ladies and
Thank
gentlemen.
you. You too.
And
Good night.
Venerable.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful presentation. Wonderful.